It came online 2011. It happened to be a keynote session that was given on a Google platform. Excellent speaker, great body of work behind him, lot of experience and insights, and lot of theatrics. So when the session starts, this guy walks in with a black hoodie, with an axe in his hand, as a god of death. And he proclaims that I'm here to tell you, testing is dead. Right? Very nice thing to start with, but that just destroyed my career. Right? That moment and what followed after that moment was a huge setback, huge turbulence that not in just my career, but for all of us as a testing community members, because it brought forward few arguments so strong that it took us almost a decade to convince the world that testing is still relevant. I'm still a big fan of this video because I think by challenging us, it also made sure that we reflect on ourselves and find a newer way of survival. But this is not in glory of that video. So this was 2011, right? Google platform, a keynote session, guy coming in saying testing is dead, and the world create a buzz around it. Cut 2. Who knows about Google Bard? Show of hands. Google Bard, anyone? Google's answer to ChatGPT that failed miserably. On day 1, right? This news was all over the place. There's a dollar number, which probably will excite, a lot of you should excite, but I'm not interested in the headline. I'm interested in the last paragraph. I'm going to read it out because it's too small a text. It says, in a press conference, just to cover this up, just cover this shit up, right? A Google spokesperson said, this highlights the importance of rigorous testing process, something that we are kicking off this week, after they went live. And this is Google we're talking about. This is Google we're talking about. Now, whatever it means to whoever, for me, this is life coming full circle. This is karma, the B word, right? And as a student of testing, I take immense pleasure these days to start any of my presentation with this slide. Doesn't matter whether it's relevant to my topic or not. Because for me, it's not as if I need a vindication, because it tells you that doesn't matter whether you're DevOps, CI/CD, Agile, you're doing test-driven development, you're digitalization, you're using microservices, IoT, or whatever. Testing is inevitable. Testing is dead only if the world has become perfect. When the creators have become so perfect that they cannot make any mistake. Only then there's a question on testing. But even then, you need them to assure us. So a huge round of applause for ourselves. If you can put your hands, right? 10 years, it just took 10 years. And mind you, some of the messages that you heard this morning in keynote sessions, the whole talk of S-Date, T-shaped skills, DevOps engineer, right? Even today, if they need a manual tester, they're asking with a manual testing experience with Selenium expertise. Why? Because now you should code. You should know the code. You should be engineer. Don't be just a representative and end user. Be something more. All of this, starting not from this video, but starting from this whole notion about how the testing has to change. And what I'm going to do now is introduce myself. My name is Saksham. I have been a sincere but very slow student of software testing for the last 23 years. Slow because it's taking me 23 years, and I think I'm still learning. I'm right now heading the digital assurance practice for NewVision. And in this next 30-odd minutes, I'm going to share some of the lessons that I have learned, some of the mistakes I made, some of the notes I took. I don't know the answer. I don't think anyone does. We're all exchanging our notes here. That's what I'm going to do, right? So, short story about me. When I joined NewVision, first thing what I did is first thing what any leader does. What do they do when they join an organization? Change the name. So what testing was very happily called quality assurance, I came in and so from today I'm going to call myself digital assurance. Why are the reasons probably you'll find in next 30 minutes. And if you don't, catch up with me after the session, right? Okay, to get started, We're going to look at digital assurance or QA transformation to digital assurance in 3 segments. We'll try and simplify this narrative as much as I can, right? But we're going to look at what. First of all, we're going to look at why. Why to transform to a digital assurance space? What is this digital assurance and transformation towards it? And how? How is where I'm going to probably share one of my case study where we could do something similar to this, right? Okay. Why digital? Before we come to QA transformation, let's talk about what is driving this. Is this my own voluntary, proactive decision that I'm going to transform now? Is this a choice that you and me have today? Honest answer, no. It's not a choice anymore. It's not a nice to have thing anymore. World is going digital, whether you like it or not. You don't have to look at the Gartner's report, because Gartner every year try to take a shot at how 2025 will look at. They're doing it for years now. They're making a prediction about the future. And this segment in every year report is quoting a higher number of digital transformation happening across the business enterprise, across the globe. Today when I opened this report from last year, the digital business itself is $1 trillion economy. Whatever it means to the business leaders, for me it means my world has changed. Is not changing, has changed. What does it mean for QA? What does it mean when the businesses go digital? It just means that the technology stack, the architecture, the systems that I need to test now are far more technical, far more modern, far more complex in nature. We're talking about cloud, we're talking about IoT, we're talking about data, we're talking about microservices, so on and so forth. That's the reality of it, right? We are not going to be testing the same web portal, web-based, a retail site or something, or a client-server architecture. Our architectures that under the test are going to go across the changes. We're talking about microservices, we're talking about event-driven architecture today and something else, serverless architecture. But this is going to happen. That's the reality of it. So first change that should trigger transformation is that the technology under test for me has undergone tremendous change. There was one argument in the today morning session that why change has become pretty old. I don't agree with it completely, because I think change is the only constant. Change has always been there, this is right. But the velocity, the speed with which the world is changing around us has gone multifold. The transition that this generation has seen in the last 10 years, right, with the world around it, probably the older generations have taken decades to witness that. Right, but coming back, so first thing, digital transformation is an end goal for my customers, my client, the business enterprises. And the way they are trying to embrace that, the way they are trying to implement that is through DevOps. Now again, just like Agile, no one is doing DevOps, everyone is trying to do DevOps-like. CI, CD, in whatever maturity they have, whatever capability they have, but everyone is trying for this. So while digital transformation is the end goal, DevOps is the vehicle for the business to reach there, the IT organizations to reach there. Question, what does it mean for me as a tester? It means the way I used to work, the pace with which I used to work, it will undergo immense change, because DevOps is all about speed. If you look at DevOps, some of the keywords that will emerge will continuous, one keyword, collaboration, second keyword, automation. All this why? Speed. So when I put these two together, digital and DevOps, what does it mean? It means the expectation from testing today is quality at speed. Why do you think so many speakers today, so many presentations today are around automation? Because it's a need of an hour. It's not a luxury anymore, right? And again, just to keep the record straight, it's not about, there's a choice here. It's not either quality or speed. Your customers today are demanding top-notch quality, making sure that the business processes are working across channels for them, no compromises. But with a speed, you cannot take another 3 months just to study the requirements, build test cases, execute and all that. That has shrunk I hope, I'm assuming, you're already working on a sprint of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, a week, an hour, depending on which company you're working for, which client you're working for. That's the rate of change. So if the question is, why does QA have to transform? Why the testing? Why you and me have to transform? The answer is because the demand today is quality at speed. And if that argument is okay with you, I'll move on to the implication part. What if we don't change? So now we understand why the world wants to change us, but what if we say, to hell with you? I've been here as a practice for last 2-3 decades. I don't want to change. Then the DevOps or the CI/CD will not yield them any results. The testing will always be looked as a bottleneck for going to the production. And this is how, if you look at some of the white papers and blogs from the development and engineering side, testing indeed is perceived as a bottleneck. That I'm building this API, I'm developing this user story in 1 week's time. But I cannot go to the production simply because it takes you 2 weeks to test the story, do the integration testing, complete the regression testing, retest it, and let me go. This is where the pressure is on us. Today morning, if we're talking about why developers are hijacking testing, probably because they are claiming that they can do a lot faster than us, a lot better than us. If we are looking at coming up with some better mechanism to redeem ourselves, we need to break that wall. This takes transformation. And that's my argument for why there's a need for transformation. We now go to what is transformation. So I'm using this word again and again, just because I love this word, right? But what does it mean? So, question for you, and a second shade that you're not sleeping. What is the first word that comes to you when I say transformation? Change? Anything else? Change for better? One word? Anything else? Automation? Perfect. All of them are right answers. No one of you. When I did a bit of Google, I found 47 synonyms for transformation. And there is no wrong answer. Every answer is bang on. However, like I said, we're going to simplify things here. So for me, transformation is what the dictionary says. Simple. There are 3 keywords in there. And you said it right. First and foremost, it's a change. But it's not any change. It's a complete change. That's the first point to note. It's not a stopgap arrangement. It's not something that you do jugaad to work around. No, it's a complete change for a purpose. And purpose is to improve on today's state, current state. So if the question is what is transformation? Transformation is a complete change to bring or make something better than what it is today. But then all this is dictionary, Gyan, English. Question, what does it mean for us? For me, again, no claims, I'm no expert. For me, the way I have broken it down, for QA to transform, there are 3 paradigm shifts. The 3 things will have to be changed to bring that complete overall, the complete transformation. Number 1, if we can let go our ego, if we can trade off some of the independence that we are so proud of, and be more collaborative with developers, with operations, with technology, with business. If you can shift left, but also shift right. If we can become the bridge that DevOps so badly wants to bring, if QA can be that bridge, then we have transformed. If whatever testing that you're doing, whatever automation that you're doing, if you can execute in a continuous way as a part of your CI/CD pipeline, just giving you one tactical use case, if you're continuous in nature, then you have transformed QA to DA. The first is collaborative, second is continuous, third is cognitive. Whether you like it or not, defect finding is an accident more often than not. We do test design with all our experience, with all our skills, with the hope that we'll find a defect. Most of our decisions in a testing life cycle, whether it's what test cases to execute, how much coverage we need, what defects to regress, are experience-based, instinct-based. But today there's a technology that the world is using. AI, ML, right? There are recommendation engines. They are using data to take informed decisions. That doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but far better than just instinct-based calls. Question is, why are we not using it in making those decisions? Can I be a bit more informed when I take how many test cases to execute? So from a shift from test everything that we can, or test everything that can be tested, to a state where test everything that needs to be tested is a shift that we can call as a transformation. This is where the QA becomes cognitive in nature. So, in summary, if our traditional practices, if our mindset, if our attitude, if our way of looking at the problems can take the 3 shifts, then we are transformed. So now we come to how part. And this is where I'm going to probably share with you one of the recent work that we did with one of our financial auditor, the large top 3 global financial auditors. We're engaged with them, right, as a preferred implementation partner for their testing services. And around 9 months back, we got an escalation from our client point of contact saying that we are not helping them enough. We're not finding right resources for them. When I inquired, I said, why do you need resources? The problem statement was this. They have been implementing automation, investing into it for almost 18 months, and they were not finding value. The value was not realized. The automation design, the maintenance turnaround time, everything was taking time. Most of their testing was still manual because the backlog was increasing with every sprint, every release. So the ask was, can we add more people? Let's add 2 more pods of 5 members each as a Tosca experts and expedite that. In this case, what we did, we said, okay, fine, here are 10 resumes. Please don't get angry, right? You are customers. But you know what? While you are going through the resume, can I have a quick look of what you're trying to do? Because if you are doing this for last 18 months and it is not working, then maybe there is something else that is wrong. So whenever something talks to you about value of automation, the realization of that value, speed, efficiency, or effectiveness, my take is look closer. And in this case, what we did, we look at 6 different areas. So when we look at automation, we look at as an ecosystem, not just as a framework, not just as a tool, because that's just one part of it. For automation to be successful, for anything in testing to be successful, you need an ecosystem that is conducive for that success. And what we did is we looked at what they are doing, the current state across these 6 areas, and find out where the gaps are. So for example, it's a pretty busy slide. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Again, the courage of asking question, the act, the bad habit of asking question came handy here. First question, what is your scope for automation? The answer is, I want to automate regression suite. Okay, how many test cases you have in regression suite? 10,000 plus. There were almost 11,000 test cases sitting in their ADO. Azure ADO is what they use for test management. This is our scope. This is what you need to do. Second question, what made you so sure that these 10,000 test cases are adequate for you to assure your system? Where is this magical number coming from? Why is it not 7,950 or 13,040? What is the basis of considering this as your test scope or test coverage? There was no answer because this is what we're doing. Our test cases keep piling on each other. Because the speed is so much, sprint after sprint, release after release, there are barely few teams which takes time out to review their test cases and rationalize them. And at one point, all our calculation for effort estimation, coverage, metrics, and everything are based on this number without knowing whether this number has lost its meaning or not. 1. 2, tools and framework. In this case, they are using Tosca, Tricentis Tosca, world's most popular tool from a commercial space, also the most expensive one. It has 5 modules, some of you have worked with Tosca. They are using this Tosca only for automation, just like how I would have used Selenium, where Tosca does test design, test case requirement, and everything, which is fine. That's a matter of choice. But you're paying for the entire tool, using 1/5 of it. Most importantly, you have a hyperscaler in ADO, but we are not leveraging that for automation at all. Neither the ADO and Tosca are integrated. So you run your automation suite, then a person goes to ADO and update those test cases manually. Pass, fail, evidence document, right? What is the current state and all that. That's a manual activity. Only the test case execution is automated. Number 3, how are you executing these test cases? We have dedicated VMs. How many? 2. How is your execution sequential? Happening during a daytime, most, because you need person to be sitting across and sitting whether it's working or not, then clicking on button. There's no distributed execution. But you're using Tosca, no? It has DEX, a plugin that comes for distributed execution. If you have a cluster of 5 VMs and use DEX, you get far better velocity. Your 400 existing test cases can be executed in a span of hours rather than taking days. That's the gap, right? 4th, you have an application that is microservice based. There are APIs and microservices running underneath. Why is your entire testing based on UI? And again, there was a discussion in the morning today, which I don't completely agree with. But for me, right, whether it's a triangle, hexagon, or whatever, whether you want to call pyramid or not, your choice. But for me, today, for this sort of architecture, we have to have a layered QS strategy. Our QS strategy cannot be one-dimensional. It has to be data-driven testing, API services-driven, and UI-driven. I'm not saying don't test UI-based. I'm saying also do that. But APIs give you speed, stability that UI seldom does. So for me, a right mix of automation would be API plus UI. In this case, it was missing. So what I meant is when I look at an automation problem, if we look at it in a holistic way, from an ecosystem perspective, then you are creating a solution for future. Otherwise, you are just solving a current problem for a couple of days. This is what transformation would be in my book. Another thing that we did is we said, you know what, all these problems are coming together because this is how your current state of execution looks like. This is how their current execution is, right? So again, a busy slide, but just to tell you, takes 25 resources to execute their regression testing over 7 days because they have only 20% automated, 80% manual. And they have another suite that has to be executed with all the combination that takes another few weeks. And this is where the development is ready, but they are not going to release this because they are busy doing this. Most of the tool integrations, touch points, are manual. There's no coverage, there's no leverage, because there's no distributed execution, so on and so forth. So one thing that I always do, before we try and solve a problem, ask them, what are we trying to achieve here? What is the end state? So if I give you 10 resources and you automate your regression pack, how does this look like from 18 months from now? My biggest observation has been that we often work on problems, trying to solve them without having a target state in mind. If you are working on a QA strategy, one thing you should do, stick your neck out, make some calculation, and say, you know what, regardless of constraints, 18 months from now on, this is how my testing should work, period. And what will happen? You will try for that and you will fall short. And yet you will be better than where you are today. But any innovation, any change, any transformation, without having a transformation state in mind, is a recipe for failure. You're doing it just for the sake of it, just for your next promotion case. It's not going to yield any value. So what we did is, even before we talk about solution, we talk about how this testing should look like in the future. And we made some broad claims that we'll complete the BVT in 20 minutes, we'll complete the entire regression pack in 3 hours. And we also put what we need for that. That we'll have distributed execution, we'll have a seamless integration with ADO throughout our testing life cycle. And with this, when the question came, how are you going to achieve it? That's where we talk about solutions. So today, I'm sure you all know, right? All of these 6 parameters that we spoke about, they have immense art of possible. Because technology is available for you. There are a huge number of great tools, great techniques, best practices. We are not going to doing anything for the first time. It has been done before by someone. All we need to be aware of those possibilities. And what we did is we said, okay, for your problems, this is an art of possible. This is how we can fix your problem. Tosca DEX, ADO integration, test case optimization, creating functional decomposition matrix for business mapping, business process mapping, and then making sure that your test case reduces. As we speak, that 10,000 number has come down to 5,600. We realize half of our test cases were redundant. And that's the scope we are working on. After doing that, like I said, one of the things that you and me should do as a consultant, as a solution architect from QA, right? We should have a journey for each of this area. If, for example, test data management, how many of you are creating test data today? No one? I'll be very surprised, huh? Okay, probably you don't want to raise your hands. Gulab Jamun were too testy, that's fine. But everyone does that. When my management asks, why are you taking so much time? I said, because I need to execute my test cases. In reality, it is the precondition that takes more time for us to create. The execution probably doesn't take that much. So the question is, how can we reduce that? We can do that manually, like we do. We can repurpose the UI-based automation script to create that data, like we do. We can use APIs or microservices to create the data faster, or we can put data injections every time a release is there to create our master data. Far more faster and better. Can we do that overnight? No. It's a journey of 5 steps. My customer is not ready. So I'm going to say, 18 months from now on, this is what we want to do. But let's start in 3 milestones. We break down that journey. And once you break down this journey for each of those 6 areas, what you get is a transformation roadmap. That's where you go and tell customer that for you, to us, digital assurance, right, which is a steady state. These are the 5 steps. These are the five key milestones. Right now, we're at 2.3. Our first step is to go to 3. Right? Okay. So far, so good. Any questions, challenges, criticism? Yes, no, maybe? All right. Now, with this, one thing that I learned is, while all this good on PPT, right, it gets you attention in a boardroom, we should not be a salesperson. We're talking about solution. We're talking possibilities here. We're talking about transformation here. So it is not just about convincing them with your PPT. It's also about knowing yourself whether it works or not. So one thing that I always prescribe is all of those ideas, take those ideas and do a dirty pilot, a quick and dirty feasibility study. This is also good for your stakeholders because then they know what you're talking about. This also earns you credential. So rather than just saying API or let's do API automation, take 5 APIs, automate them. Sorry, how much time I have? Very good. Okay. So this is what we did. You do a pilot and you show them the business benefits because that's the language they understand. Cost, quality, time. Simple. You tell them how is this new approach, a different approach, saves them more dollars, saves them more hours, right? And brings the quality more. If this data sheet is speak in terms of data sheet, don't speak in terms of technical jargons, best practices. That language is lost. The audience that you ultimately signs on those proposals is the audience that understands data points. I think as a tester, we also need to understand to articulate our work in data points. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good question, right? And I was about to come to it. Because what I'm so far talking about is one program. And this is exactly my customer asked. Great job. How can we replicate this, right? And this is where you need something like a transformation center. People don't like the words like COEs and all that so far. But you need a central hub from where you can replicate these business practices. What helps you is the first case study. So in this case also, I'll come back to your question, but this has been our journey. Right from the time when they asked us 10 resources, which we're very happy, because that means 10 persons billing, to a point, the entire journey for creating a gap analysis report, due diligence, pilots, and then ultimately the phase 1 of laying out the foundation. So once they saw the results, they gave us the access, we upgraded few tools, integrated them, we rationalized our test cases, we built BVT, automated BVT, plugged it with the CI/CD pipeline. In my target state, I had 25 minutes, it is taking 45 minutes today. But they are not complaining, because earlier they used to take 3 hours. So that's why I would say be bold. Commit something and fail short. That's all right. Current state. Now that everything is working, now that they said, okay, why don't we convert this into a factory model now? Now that everything is standardized, industrialized, now we have an automation factory that is in place, 17-member team, right? Why? Because now there are entire channels that are catering to us. We ask them not to be bothered about tool, framework choices, test cases, and everything. This factory would take care. Same model. But that is how we churn out now. And this is where the cross-pollination and industrialization come in. Okay? Right. Mistakes are made. Lessons are learned. While all this story is good, does that mean that there was never an embarrassing moment for me? No. When you make some bold moves, right? When you make some tall claims, when you try to do something new, you fail. Otherwise, probably you are not challenging yourself enough. I failed too. The lesson that I have, number one, never ever start the transformation without a sponsor on board at first. You need someone at the top who backs your idea, is ready to take chances with you. Because unless you have a leadership support, the transformation will never really work. It's not a bottom-up act at all. It's a top-down to begin with. Let's not make any bones about it. So first job is to convince that leader, convince that manager. It starts from there. And then you work bottoms up to implement that. Number two, define transformation. Because like that elephant and four blind people. Today, everyone is using the word transformation just the way I do, but everyone has a different meaning to it. So first thing when I talk about transformation, in this case, it was about regression automation. In your case, it could be about test data management. I don't know. But define that transformation, put this out in black and white. That will help you with the conversation and narrative. Have a target state. Don't work without target state. Third, engage with delivery teams. Just because I'm an automation guy, just because I'm a techie guy, okay, doesn't build a hollow around me. Unless I work closely with that delivery guy who's working on day-to-day sprints, week-to-week sprints, it won't succeed. Unless he accepts your idea, unless he accepts your innovation, it won't work. Business case first, MVP second. Why business case? Because you're changing something. You're proposing a paradigm shift. That's why show them what the value is, prove it through MVP, then work forward. No big bang approaches. Build credentials, I talked to you about. And last, but most importantly, transformation is not about technology. Even though we speak about a lot of tools and framework, this is about people management, culture. This is about mindset, not tools. Unless we really imbibe that, it won't work. Right? So if you take a lot of pride into your frameworks and your toolings and automation script, sorry, that's just part of it. The mindset that you're dealing with is what is going to kill it or make it success. This is a thank you slide, but also for moment for us to celebrate, right? From cycle to the part of moon where no one has landed. To the scientist, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for me? Is that sentence. That a lot of things, what I said, looks impossible. Maybe in some of you thinking back of your mind, मेरा customer कभी आने बोला इसको. My manager will never agree, right? But this is where it takes us. That is the purpose of our life. It's impossible, but it is possible only when you begin. So all the best. Thanks for tolerating.
That there is some part of success to you also.
Not joining ISRO.
But by not joining ISRO. So that, good people can join and can do their job. So, with that, this track is mine. In the sense I'm hosting it, isn't it? So I'm going to bring that change. Generally, what happens when you have to give a memento to a speaker, you find somebody in the audience who is, a little known or something. I'm going to change that. Who is the youngest person in this group? Yeah, of course, I can understand that. But anybody who is less than 23 years old? 24? Less than 24 years old? Nobody. What? Did I got all elders like me? 25? Anybody who is less than 25? Don't tell me. No one with less than 25 years age. Come. Yeah. No one, seriously. Oh, you don't want to reveal? Guys, I'm married. I'm not trying to find a prospect here. Okay, 26. I can see young people sitting there, they all are afraid. I can see a lot of, what's your age? Huh? Come on the stage. People say, we don't give chance.